Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the Israeli military has set a date for sending ground forces into Rafah, but has not specified when this will happen. The U.S. opposes the plan, saying that it would have a devastating impact on civilians and Israel's own security. Netanyahu's statement comes days after Israel's army withdrew troops from Khan Yunis. Some Gazans have already started to return to the rubble in Gaza's second largest city. Over 1 million are still sheltering in Rafah. Most of Gaza's population has been displaced by the Israeli offensive, which was launched after the October 7th terror attacks by Hamas. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner is a spokesman for Israel's military, and he told us why Israel considers Rafah to be so crucial to defeat Hamas.
We do know that in the Gaza Strip, there are still at least 6 operational battalions of Hamas, 4 of those indeed in the Rafah area, 2 in more central Gaza, operating at a lower capacity, but in the south, in Rafah, there are still 4 operational battalions. If we are going to be successful at dismantling Hamas, we're going to have to go to Rafah. I think if we've learned anything from our rescue operation 2 months ago in Rafah, that hostages are being held there, and that there is an extensive force that can conduct organized fighting against us. So we need to operate in order to get rid of Hamas and bring back the hostages.
Let's take this to our correspondent, Tania Krämer in Jerusalem. Tania, Israel seems determined to go into Rafah despite many calls opposing this plan, including from their staunchest allies. Why would Israel take the risk nonetheless?
Well, I mean, I think Israel doesn't see it as a risk. It does see it as a necessity. And we just heard it from the spokesperson of the Israeli military. And we've heard it also from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu time and time again, that the military needs to go into Rafah to destroy those 4 battalions. They're also still searching for the leadership. And there's also a lot of pressure on Netanyahu. This announcement that there's a date for Rafah, although it wasn't specified when and how this will happen, also came after a lot of criticism by his far-right cabinet minister, saying the policy of maximum pressure on Hamas needs to be maintained. And of course, this all happens in defiance of international opposition, international pressure of not going ahead, especially also from Israel's key ally, the United States. They have said that Israel needs to present a clear plan how they will evacuate or how they will bring those estimated 1 million people that are sheltering in Rafah to some sort of safety. There are talks going on between the US and Israeli officials to explain how they're going to do it. I mean, the true cost is for the residents and for those displaced people in Rafah. And if you use the word sheltering, it's also not really describing the situation. There are airstrikes and strikes on the city as well as the war is going on. And we've been talking to people there in the past weeks. They've been saying, we don't know where to go, we don't know what to do. And they're very, very concerned about these announcements that are coming every other day that an operation is imminent.
Yeah, and that is part of why the U.S., for example, is calling for an immediate ceasefire. And Hamas and Israel both sent delegations to Cairo for truce talks on Sunday. Hamas, which is, of course, considered a terrorist organization by many states, says it is now studying the terms of a new proposed truce deal. What more can you tell us?
Well, this came after high-level talks by the mediators and also with the US over the weekend. Now we understand that Hamas has said that this proposal that was submitted by Egypt and Qatar to Hamas doesn't meet any of their demands, but they will continue studying that. And there is the expectation that they will give another answer sometime soon. Now, of course, we have heard this many times before, and depending on which source you're hearing, sometimes it's said there's progress, sometimes they said the gaps are very wide. It's mainly about the Hamas demands. They're saying there needs to be a full ceasefire, there needs to be a full withdrawal, and people need to be able to return to the north. So we're waiting to see what will actually happen here in the coming hours.
That was DW correspondent Tania Krämer in Jerusalem. As always, great to get your insights. Thank you so much. Well, amid hopes for a ceasefire in time for the end of Ramadan, families in Gaza have been doing their best to prepare for Eid al-Fitr, the celebrations marking the end of the fasting month. But with most of the population displaced by the fighting and much of Gaza's infrastructure destroyed, this year's festivities will be difficult to organize.
These pastries are traditionally baked and eaten by Palestinians to celebrate Eid, the end of the holy month of Ramadan. But this year, Aya al-Masharawi is preparing them in a makeshift oven, next to the tent she shares with her sisters and their children. They fled their homes to this camp in Rafah, in southern Gaza.
Eid used to be joyful. The atmosphere was beautiful. We used to make these pastries with loved ones and distribute them. But nowadays, there's no joy in Eid because we've been displaced from our homes. Our family members have been killed or are still in Gaza City. So Eid doesn't bring as much joy anymore.
Crowds gather in this market in the city of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza to buy supplies for the religious holiday. Here too, the annual festivities are overshadowed by the ongoing conflict. And food shortages have led to price spikes.
Because of the war here in Gaza, there's no spirit or joy. The prices are too high. No one is able to enjoy Eid.
UN trucks arrived in Deir al-Balah for the first time in 2 months, distributing critical supplies among several schools and shelters. But this renewed trickle of aid does not go far enough to help the Palestinians who are sheltering here as they face malnutrition and disease.